First off, let's get the facts straight. There are no good witches. All forms of witchcraft are bad. With that in mind, I want you to listen to this for a second, because it reminds me of a question someone recently asked Father Iannuzzi about curses.
I was recently tagged in this video of a street performer that at first glance you're like, oh, it's a street performer. But no, as it turns out, it's actually a witch in disguise and not the good kind. Apparently, this street performer stands there and does his little act, and he places his hands on people's heads, typically small children. Those are like his main target. The reason I know this is because the person who uploaded is extremely gifted, and he's actually able to see far beyond what the normal person can see with their naked eye. And as he was looking at the street performer performing and putting his hands on people, he literally saw when he was chanting things, like his eyes were flickering, and he saw that this street performer had over 4,000 D words attached to it.
During our last group Zoom session with Father Iannuzzi last week, someone asked Father Iannuzzi a question that I thought many of you will find useful. Try and listen to this.
Yes, Father. I was at a retreat yesterday, and this speaker, who supposedly is, and I'm not putting him down, endorsed by Rome, and a couple of things that he said left me in a quandary. Number one, in our prayer group, we pray for people for healing. We've been doing it for 50 years. And he suggested strongly that we not ever touch anyone that we're praying for healing for. So I'm coming to you because I trust your judgment.
So the statement was, when we are praying over people, we should not touch them?
Yes, because we can get the diseases that they've got.
No, that's not true. I'm wondering why he would say that. Remember, even Father Gabriel Amorth teaches this, who is a very seasoned exorcist. You cannot, well, let me rephrase that. Possession, obsession, vexation, infestation, diabolical manifestations of all kinds cannot be transmitted by touch. They're not contagious. He would say that in his works. Evil is not contagious by physical contact. Now, is there such a thing as infestation? Yes, but that's not transmitted by physical contact. That's transmitted by an incantation, a spell, a curse, a hex, an evil eye, a macumba, whatever type of diabolical evil one wishes upon another. So the evil is transmitted by, first and foremost, a pact with the devil, first and foremost. Second, by a desire to communicate through that pact the evil to a person or an object. It could be an article of clothing, it could be a doll, it could be a person, it could be an instrument that they use by means of transportation, whatever. And those things are called infestations, whenever evil attaches itself to something physical. Those happen, of course, but that's not transmitted by touching something. If that were the case, we wouldn't touch anybody. Like maybe this person's infested, So no, God's grace, by virtue of our baptism, protects us from all transmission of physical contact. Okay. Now, is it true that if we do, let's say, ingest some food that has been cursed, and this has happened too, that it can affect us physically? Yes. So no, we cannot transmit evil by physical contact, but the object that is cursed may be infested by a curse that's done, first of all, by a pact with the devil, second of all, by a desire to transmit that evil. The grace of God that protects us by virtue of our baptism, confirmation, holy life, reception of the sacraments, protects us from physical evils being transmitted by physical contact. Now, sometimes God allows holy people not to be possessed in their will, never, but afflicted, tormented by the devil. Case in point, Gemma Galgani, Padre Pio, who was physically harassed by the devil, though the evil didn't transmit into him, just physically attacked. So Luisa Picaret, and the list goes on.
However, though we're trying our best to share clips of priests like Father Iannuzzi that I've just shared with you, there will be people out there, and celebrities among them, saying stuff like this.
I'm a church girl, and finding the duality in that was a really difficult journey for me, because I was like, well, witchcraft is the devil's work, right? Oh God. Had I given myself permission to be curious about it as a young person, I would have learned how wrong I was and not wasted so much time. So often, like magic and witchcraft and all of this like vilification of women, it described witchcraft as women with the absence of God, right? With the absence of spirituality. And what I've found in all of the research that I've done is that it is the exact opposite. When you are the kind of person who honors nature, when you are the kind of person that finds spirituality and divinity in everything, you are so much closer to God than someone that sits in church for an hour once a week. And the women who I have encountered in the witch community are so divine and giving of themselves and curious, because they're not just exploring like pagan practices, but they're also exploring Buddhist practices and Mary Magdalene and her book of the Bible and Christianity in its truest form.
And speaking of curses, I shared this with you before, but it's worth revisiting again to provide the necessary information to those watching.
What are the purposes of why curses are done? First, as to purpose. This is a type of curse. Amorous. To obtain the love of a person or to destroy the object of amorous feelings relationship with others so as to free that person in order to obtain their love. Then there is also, as a type of curse, poisonous. That is to cause physical, psychological, familial, or economic ruin on the victim. Then there is the binding, to block action, movement, relationships. There's also transference, to transfer to the victim the hideous things, usually in the form of torments, performed on a doll or photo of the person targeted. This is commonly understood or envisioned as in using dolls or pictures, using pins, needles, blades over a doll, over a picture, and this and then takes effect on the victim himself or herself. There is also putrefaction, to procure a sickness leading to death. Usually there is a rotting of an internal organ involved. And there is also possession, to conjure a demon and command it to possess the victim and destroy the victim. How are curses usually done? And how does it operate? As to method, there is the direct and the indirect. When we talk about direct curses, the curse is introduced to the intended victim through an object that would touch the body of the person, such as by way of cursed food or drink. And there is also the indirect, where the curse is performed in an object that represents the victim, such as a voodoo doll. As to operation, curses are done by puncture and torture, using pins, nails, hammer, blade, fire, ice, insects, bugs, worms, or by tying or binding with laces, knots, bridles, ribbons, bands, hoops, chains, or by putrefaction, burying the object, throwing it to the sea where it cannot be found. The cursed object is symbolic of the victim, and at times the cursed object is an animal sacrificed to the demon that would deliver the curse. By malediction, wishing ill directly upon the person or on a photo or a symbol of that person. And by satanic rite, using a satanic cult or black mass performed with the purpose of inflicting mortal harm on the intended victim. As to means, with hexes and spells, puppets, or meat with pins, bones of the dead, blood, toads, chickens, insects, or with cursed objects through gifts, plants, pillows, dolls, ribbons, talismans. With an evil eye, a touch of the hand, an embrace, a breath, with a telephone, whether in silence, a word, a breath, or something else.
That will be all for the video this time. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. And hopefully all of you have learned a lot from this video. Remember, if there's any feedback or suggestion, please let us know in the comments below. And until the next one, thanks again for watching and may God bless you.